We have okay. So get your seats, and our afternoon is going to be with CISCO Menezes.
Meneses, yeah.
Close enough. And he's going to tell us about fire escapes and related to you know, a couple of code sections to talk about it. And it'll be about 2 hours of training in Cisco.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bruce. Everybody got a book? Everybody got one of these books already? Great. What I'm showing on here is normally these classes, I've taught this class from Seattle to San Diego, Chicago to Texas, Maine all the way down to Virginia. So I'm able to tell you what everybody is out there is doing. I'll tell you that the wheel has been invented and there's a lot of industry standards already out there. And all you have to do is copy and paste. So we'll talk about where the websites are right now, what we've done. Something was missing, what we created, put it out there, and it's all free. Right now you're on a website called, you know, the National Fire Escape Association. Just type in YouTube, type in Fire Escape Seminar. Every seminar we've done, like this one we're recording. So if you had somebody that was supposed to be here at your meeting, didn't show up, we got a copy of this class, and you can just send them in. If you want your phone, there's no fees or anything. You just click in and you type in Fire Escape Seminar, and you can watch the class in your regions. So some of the places that I teach the entire state of Jersey, so I've taught at all the academies. I've taught building inspectors, fire inspectors, housing inspectors, facilities guys. So this is a great class. We're talking about fire escapes, which we all call the bastard child of egress. It's the one thing in a building that you guys have not seen for at least 50 years. You've looked at it, you ignored it, you winked at it, and you relied on third parties to come and tell you what's its general condition, and they've winked at it, they've looked at it, and they give you a document that usually has a huge disclaimer on it that says, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, from the ground, looking up, this thing didn't fall on my head, it looks pretty good. But then we have things that happen like happened in Philadelphia. 3 people down to the ground, we're going to cover that today, right? And all of a sudden one of them died. We have things like that happen in this month, in the month of January also, out in Colorado Springs. You know, some vendors were using the fire escape to do work on the roof. The cable snapped on the cantilever, caught him underneath the head, and guess what happened to that guy? God. So we're going to talk about live load testing and dead load testing of actual dead people out there. We're going to talk to you about how fire escapes, which haven't been seen at least for 50 years, are about buildings that are 50, 75, 100 years old. So that's what we're going to cover today. So because it's only 2 hours, I'm going to really just rapid fire through a lot of things. So, but a lot of times my 6-hour classes, which I teach at in a bigger setting, a lot of times it's the morning we do a class, and in the afternoon we do a downtown walk around. We just go penetrate an alleyway. If this class was longer, since we didn't have time to go to an alleyway, we'd show other alleyways, and this is basically what it's all about, applying what you've learned here. You'll learn through this class never to get on a fire escape again, because you'll have all the information you need by looking out a window and looking from the ground, looking up, and you'll know whether or not that has been touched in the past 50+ years. And if it hasn't, then you just write a violation, which is simple. All fire escapes must be structure sound to be kept painted. As soon as the word suspect enters your thought, you have all you need to write a violation, because the law says you must keep it painted. So how many people here have seen a rusty fire escape in their town? So that's the violation right there. See, the law says you must maintain it at all times. That means a paint job. So, and one of the key things we're going to talk about today is load testing, evaluations. We're going to talk about what a real certification is with no disclaimers, because you want assurance. Not insurance, you want assurance. Otherwise, you're going to pull the load test card, because we're going to show you the codes, all the codes out there that are basically going to tie this all together. So, I'm going to very briefly go over this book of all the things that have already been invented that you can just use, borrow, copy, paste. Okay? So this is not, and I've been doing this for about 10 years all over the country. And I've been in the, I'm 53, but I was hijacked into this business 40 years ago when my dad started it when he was 71. So what I do have is a master's degree in reverse stupidity, which means that I know all the wrong ways to basically get one over on you guys. So you can go a long way with caulking and paint. Got it? And that's what's been the truth, that's what's been the norm. You guys have been writing scraping paint violations, and guess what every Tom, Dick, and Harry did for you? Scraped it and painted it. Did he fix it? No. Did he hit it? You can hide a lot with paint and a lot with caulking. So today I'm going to share all the insides and outsides, but sadly, when these things were originally built, they could sort of withstand some stupidity. And a lot of stupid people have been maintaining these fire escapes. But now when they're 50, 75 years old, guess who's dying and who's hitting the ground? Tenants, vendors, city officials, firemen. And they're just dropping. So a class, as a matter of fact, I did a class last year in the Liberty chapter in Philadelphia, and there was about 50 inspectors. And these fire escapes, I had the same class, just the same way I've had classes in LA, in Chicago, and people are still following the fireman that died on the fire escape in Chicago. The ladder gave way or something happened and he felt that running died. Just recently. So that's what we're going to talk about. And it usually means when something happens, that's when everybody starts to get jumping, classes form, and so it usually takes a depth. So let's go right to the book. And that way I can get into slides, and we're going to rapid fire. Don't just let me talk. Anybody questions anything, just throw out a question right away. But usually somebody has to die. So I'm out of the Boston area. This is what it took to get us to change our code. And the code all over the country pretty much is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? So this is what we had. We had the IBC code out there that basically says, you must examine, test, and certify your fire escape. But there was no 5-year rule. So then this poor fireman was basically saving the lady in 1973, and what happened was, as he's on the 4th floor getting a fire ladder to come over to basically put this woman and her niece on the ladder, at the last split second, this guy won a Pulitzer Prize for this photo, by the way. In 73, the whole fire escape collapsed away. She tried to grab him by the legs. He held on with one hand, and he's alive today. She died, and the niece fell upon her. The niece was about 8 years old. Same thing happened in Philadelphia just a few months ago. In the beginning of January. 3 people fell. One guy, 22 years old, not only fell once, he fell into a pit right next to the fire escape, and he died, I believe, in hospital. And I believe they were pretty quick. I believe there was a lawsuit filed January 27th on that. Okay? Again, in Colorado Springs, the guy was decapitated to a certain degree. And the fireman fell in Chicago. So very rare so this happened. So I was just up in Dorsey doing a fire escape inspection just this morning. Why? Because Philadelphia. So everybody, a lot around the country, everybody started got spooked. Like, oh, come look at my thing I haven't looked at for 50 years. Got it? So let me tell you what's out there that you can just copy and paste. We can do it for you. So we can give you any one of these documents in Word or PDF, and you can modify it, put your city's name, your city's information. Everything here is generic. It doesn't mention the company by name, doesn't mention anything by name. So you can just use this as industry standard documentation that I got from the help of other building inspectors, other fire inspectors, housing inspectors, and let's ask that question. How many fire guys here? How many building guys here? Fire prevention? The fire guys are fire prevention? Okay, building guys? Health department guys? You're going to find that the health department is going to start helping you guys in some of this issue. Housing, or maintenance, depending on how you call it. Any housing guys here? Okay, and we'll even get into the point where the city and the tax collector can help you guys with fire escapes. Okay, so let's take a look at the first thing. It's called an industry standard guide, procedures and guidelines. What's it say? When you read it, you can have it on your face, you can have it on your website, or you can have it on top of your table. It says, if you're an examiner, who's the examiners? Design professionals or others acceptable to the building official. So if you were going to examine a fire escape in my city, follow this general rule. If you're going to fix a fire escape in my city, and you're a vendor, this is the general rule you're going to follow. if you're gonna paint these fire escapes, and the EPA was kind enough to remind everybody here that fire escapes have what on them? Lead paint, anything older than 78. Does anybody have a fire escape newer than 78? So everybody here that has fire escapes from the 1900s, they all have lead, meaning you can't weld on anymore, right? Because one of the keys about the renovator license is you can't put an open flame to what? Anything that has lead. So if you see a guy welding like crazy on a fire escape, which is what they've been doing for 50 years, so guess who got kicked out of the arena? All your welding companies can no longer show up at a fire escape unless they leave the welding machine at home and bring what with them? Bolts. Because 99% of all fire escapes are bolted connection fire escapes anyway. And at this Dawson fire escape I just did today, it was all full of rust, and guess what somebody did? Welded all the rust into position. So, industry standard guidelines. Put your name at the top, you can put your information at the bottom. We're going to talk about a couple of people. EPA, we're going to talk about OSHA. You're going to find some great OSHA information here that's going to just blow your mind a little bit about how you can't even be in the building repairing or altering it anyway. I'll show you the code. Unless it has 2 means of egress, which means if the fire escape is your second means of egress, what do you got to fix first, not last, on every renovation going on in any building? Fire escape. So we'll show you that. Here's industry standard codes. You know what this is? This is yes, no question. This is not your opinion. This is a yes, no question based on paint in general. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. What this is a confidence list. So if you go to Seattle.gov, Portland, LA, they all have confidence lists that we help generate. And what they are is yes, no questions, not opinions of something. Is there no rust in the connection? Is all the bolts good? You know, so does the cantilever drop and hit the ground? It's all yes, no questions. This is called a confidence statement. So we'll tell you what website to go to on a state website, on a city website for fire prevention or building department, that go there and just copy this. This will get down in Word or PDF, and you can modify it. So you can have a confidence test this afternoon if you want one. And we'll show you what cities already put this up on their website, okay? We're going to talk to you because of today's digital cameras. Guess what you can have at your office immediately upon an inspection? Photos and videos. A lot of your buildings are over 35,000 cubic, meaning what? That they need what kind of oversight? Design professional oversight, right? So a lot of times your buildings are fire escapes are being touched, but without having proper oversight. We're going to show you the industry standard repair guidelines, which is pretty simple. If you got rust in the connection, what do? Remove the bolt, clean the rust, spot prime the connection, fill it with silicone, put a new bolt in it, squeeze it, goop it around, and that's the entire repair, that guidelines. What you have here is certificates. This is a certificate issued by the state for Boston. What's right in the middle of it? To the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, the fire escape is in conformity with the Mass Building Code, which means what? It's a parachute. For who? The guy who signs it. That you're going to stick this in the file. But you can't put this over a coffin, can you? Because the city's going to get sued because you accepted an opinion. So when you accept an opinion, and the code says you must evaluate, test, or certify, that fire escape that dropped somebody down in whatever city, if there was no test done, who's assuming the liability for it if you're accepting some of these opinions? Well, the code says, I want it tested or certified. So we're going to tell you what the words mean, test and certified means. We're going to show you how all fire escapes for 100 years have not changed in their construction. We're going to cover that today. Actually, we're going to fly through a lot of these things because usually this is a 6-hour class, guys. We're going to talk about how all fire escapes must be complete to grade. Every code says that you can make fire escapes complete to grade. There's a code that says, you know, the last piece can be 8 feet up, 8 feet from the ground. But then if you keep reading the code, it says, and then continue to the ground with a ladder or a cantilever or whatever. You know what everybody out there did? They built fire escapes with fire escape ladders that ended 8 feet and did what with the rest of the code? Forgot about it. So all fire escapes must be complete to grade. In Seattle, you have to put a tag on every fire escape. It has to have a white tag, the name of the company that inspected it, and when the next inspection is due. You don't have to go back to City Hall to a file to find out when the next inspection. When anybody that's walking around building, fire, health, anybody looks up and sees an outdated tag like you see on an elevator tag, what do they do to that particular fire escape or that building? Shut it down. So if it has a problem, it gets a yellow. If it has emergencies, guess what it gets? A red, and it gets shut down usually. Got it? So this is already existing on some of the cities. And where did this come out? Because somebody fell in Seattle, they brought us in, and what did they come out with? A tagging system. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You're going to start a tagging system. You're really not going to go out and start inspecting all your fire escapes. You just want to know the condition of every fire escape in your city today. So you don't care if it's white, red, or yellow. You just care that they are red, white, or yellow. You know what I'm saying? And then from there, you have a starting point which might take 3 to 5 years, guys. And in some cases, 5 to 10 years to finally get this all under control. So this is not going to happen overnight. We talk about all the steps that you can have. We always offered a 5-city pilot program where we like to get somebody from the group say, hey, I want to get beaten up for the next 3 to 5 years. I want to use my city as a test to basically check churches, check hospitals, check residential, commercial, and basically share your information and training with all the rest so that maybe in 5 years' time, you guys can submit to the state a test model of 5 cities and said, here's all the stuff we hate. And you can also share with other cities that have gone through this and say, how can we quicken this up? What should we do? Okay? And I always recommend that you keep this somewhere on your board so that when somebody comes in and says, I ain't fixing that fire escape, you know, you guys are just trying to get more money out of us. You can say, the reason why you need to have your fire escape fixed in that orphanage is because of this, okay? So let's, anybody have any questions so far? Just what I've done so far. Any questions? All right, let's start flying, as they say, through the okay. So stop me at any time. As you can see, fire escapes are made for people to self-evacuate, not for anybody to help them get out. Fire escape is for people to self-evacuate, and whether the fireman shows up 1 minute, 10 minutes, or an hour later, they use it to get in the building if they so choose. Or they use it to get out of the building when all hell breaks loose. Okay? So we started the National Fire Escape Association because I had so much stuff that I've been doing for so many years. Guess who we couldn't give it to? We couldn't give it to everybody. Everybody was just, there was no way to get it out there. So I basically put every video I've ever done through on the website. Documentation that we made from one city, we shared with other cities by putting it there. So if you go to the National FireEscapeAssociation.org, everything is there for you to basically get. So there's industry standard documentation just to download, and you can get it in PDF or Word, and then you can modify it, because this is basically information that can be used nationwide. So it's either on somebody's website or we've already, so it's, as they say, source free. So anybody can use what you got here. Guys, see this big cluster up there of people? That's roughly a 5x5 platform. Anybody's ever heard that, sometimes, the reason why a fire escape collapses is because they have too many people on it, okay? Let me explain why that's an untrue statement. A properly maintained fire escape will never fall. It can't fall, okay? And here's why. If it's a 5x5, that's 25 square feet. Times 100 pounds per square foot, that's 2,500 pounds that it can take, got it? If you take 300-pound firemen, and I put 10 of them on there, that's 3,000 pounds. Can I get 10 firemen with all their gear on in a 5x5 box? Can I get 5 of them in a 5x5 box?
With donuts.
So this fire escape is not made, is overbuilt. When you build rooms, you got 60 pounds per square foot, you got 80 pounds, you got decks. What's the deck load requirement here? Is it 60, 40? Right? So you remember in Chicago, 27 people died on a deck collapse? Why? Because it wasn't a fire escape, that's why. Because if it was a fire escape, you could put all those people on there and bring in a circus of elephants and it still wouldn't go down. Because that's how fire escapes are built. They're built so that this, back in the day, was nobody's problem. Nobody cared about this, because you could put as many. You take 150-pound tenants. I need to put 20 tenants to equal 3,000 pounds in that 5x5. Am I gonna have a problem? Okay, so fire escapes will never collapse. Properly maintained, a fire escape will never collapse. What it can do is it can rip, the fire escape can collapse to the ground with a piece of wall attached to it. Did the fire escape fail? Got a wall failure. Perfect. So this is why. But this was when fire escapes were all kind of built back when? In the 1900s, because they were built as early as 1875, but in the 1900s till about the 1940s, they built every fire escape you could imagine. And then they said, you know what? Nobody's maintaining these things. So what's the rule that changed around that time? All egresses were inside. And what do you do with these existing fire escapes? By then it'll be the George Jeffersons. These will all be down. But in the meantime, what did they invent? Bubble gum, duct tape, paper clips to keep all your buildings together. And guess what they did? Did they use any of that on the fire escapes? They only used paint to keep all your fire escapes together. But they were so well built. Okay? Now, here's an average building that's built in the 1900s, 1950s. 25 years after a building is built, all the electric is usually swapped out of it. All the plumbing is usually swapped out of it. All the windows are usually swapped out of it. You know, all the roof has been, the boiler. 50 years later, all those things are swapped out again. Guess what never gets a swap? You take a fire escape and you put it outside a building, and you guys walk in and you look outside and the fire escape is in poor condition, you'll let that building live. You take that same building, you put an interior stair, front and a rear, and somebody takes out the rear staircase and to make a closet space. What do you guys do to the building? You shut it down. But as soon as they push that staircase outside, you guys don't shut down buildings. Like, hey, get that fixed, and even if it has dangling threads, nobody. So that's why we call it the bastard child of egress, because guess what kind of attention it gets? Until you have dead people on the ground and lawsuits flying, then what happens? Then you want a class like this. So let's, here's all your codes. IBC, IFC, NFPA, and we're going to also talk about the OSHA course. So please write some of these down. For all of you to know, I was in Atlantic City, IFC for 2012, whether you've adopted it or not, they basically have put in the code, which it looks like the building code. This is what it says: testing and certification. All exterior fire escape systems shall be examined or tested and certified for structural action and safety every 5 years. The best part of this 5-year rule. They took it out of IBC, so when you look in 2012 in the IBC, it's no longer there. Yes, some states will adopt, some states will modify. I'm just telling you, this is a good thing, not a bad thing. I don't care who got it, I'm just saying the 5-year rule is the good thing. Because before, it was don't break it, don't fix it unless it's broken. So the 5-year rule is what we had to do in Boston when the lady collapsed, because we didn't have a 5-year rule. So any place that has a 5-year rule. New Jersey has a 5-year rule, but it's the green card inspection. So it's like when you inspect the building every 5 years, that's when you, but this is the 5-year rule. Now, International Fire Code. In Jersey, basically it says, depending upon a structural condition, a load test shall be conducted. I want to show you who has the power. Who orders the load test? You or the structural engineer? So when we get in here, it says very clearly in the International Fire Code, depending upon the structural condition, a load test shall be conducted. Who orders that? But here's another one. I'll throw it to give it a little bit of the NFPA. The authority having jurisdiction shall be permitted to approve any existing fire escape stair that has been shown by load test or other satisfactory evidence to have adequate strength. So there's two things here. I'm going to talk about load test, and this is not a load test question because it's very expensive, okay? But I'm going to tell you that you do have the power to order the load test, or as long as somebody gives you other satisfactory evidence to have adequate strength, you can basically have what's called the other satisfactory evidence. That's what this class is all about, okay? And then the International Building Code, which looks now like the fire code. All exterior fire escapes systems shall be examined, tested, or certified. So if we tie this in with the one that really speaks it pretty clear, the authority having jurisdiction, which is who? Shall be permitted to approve any fire escape by what? By a load test. No, it says right there. The first one, it says it's a load test. So I want to walk into your office. I walk in with what? To basically close that violation. A load test. Hey, here's the results of the load test. That's it, right? That's it. That's what this says. And the other ones say the same thing. Testing and certification. All fire escapes shall be examined, tested, or certified. Certified is what we're going to mean. What's going to be other satisfactory evidence. We'll cover that, but Right now, all three codes kind of say to you what? You shall walk in my office with what in your hand? Okay? How many people here have ever seen a load test, witnessed a load test, or have? So this is a perfect example. Your fire escape ladders, they're at a fire and something, a tree knocks up against it. What happens to that ladder? It's out till it's what? Tested. So that's a portable fire escape system that shows up at these buildings, right? This is a permanent system there. And so they're asking the same thing. If it's suspect, what's the first thing you do? Take it out of service. Do what to it? Test it. So it says right here, this code says test, this says test, this one says it the best. That you, the authority, have in jurisdiction. So whether you have a new engineer, or an old engineer, whoever's going to walk in, what must they walk in with first? Unless they've spoken with you and they say, do you take anything else but load test here? And you say, what? I take other satisfactory evidence. So from now on, what did this class just tell you that all the codes concur on? That the first thing you step in on any fire escape is always load test. So that changes the flavor of everything you're ever going to do, because that puts a lot of pressure on the repairers and the engineers that are going to look at your fire escape. They're going to come in and say, anything else I can do? Say, oh, well, I'm glad you asked. I really don't like load testing. There's a lot of unnecessary money. Doesn't buy any bolts, doesn't buy any paint. There's other issues I may have with the wall, which before I'll even let you do a load test, I may need some other things. But let's talk about other evidence of strength. And what is other evidence of strength? I'll give you some examples. If I change every bolt on that fire escape, every fastener, and I verify that there's no rust in any connection, and I verify the connections into the wall, or I duplicate them, do you still want me to load test that fire? No. That's called other evidence of strength. That's also called a certification. I basically refurbished that system back to original day one, new line in the sand. So that's called a certification. Let me give you a partial one. Hey, I've gone to this fire escape. I've changed half of all the bolts, and I'm leaving half of the bolts that are 50, 75-year-old square heads and rivets. Do I still have to do the load test? Or I can do a partial, right? Well, you say, well, whatever you fixed almost 100% or 100%, you don't have to load test, but whatever you still left the old stuff on, what do you ask for? Partial load test. So you're always going to pull that load test out, the word load test. And one of the reasons, why are you ordering load test? Because she's old, that's all. But she's great, yeah. And I ran up and down, yeah. She's old. 75 years old, she needs a load test. Unless you are willing to now invest into that fire escape, which should have been done 25 to 50 years ago, and do what? Change every fastener. You change all the fasteners, you have a brand new fire escape. You verify the connections into the wall, which we'll cover today. You have a brand new fire escape. There's no load test. So all the codes state that. Let's help you now with the OSHA. I want to write this down. 1910.37. During repairs or alterations, employees must not occupy a workplace unless the exit routes required by this subpart are available and the existing fire protections are maintained, or until alternate fire protection is furnished that provides an equivalent level of safety. So what's this mean? One of the things that we're going to come out of here with all the things that happen in all these fire escapes is, how can I continue doing my job without giving me any more responsibility? Because my time is very limited, our staff is short, our budget is low. You need check systems, you need checkbox systems. Guess what this is? This is part of the permit process. You can either do it at the end or do it at the beginning. You can use this to close a permit or to start a permit. So somebody comes in and what do they need to open a permit? They need to fill it out. They need a license. They need workers' comp. They need liability. They need a plot plan. They need to go see that they paid all their taxes. What else have you made as checklists in order to issue a permit, whether they're changing a bulb, changing a toilet, or altering a room? What OSHA say they have to do? They have to maintain what? 2 means of egress. So you get to this nice building that they're gutting, they're going to make it into condos, and they have this old fire escape they're going to use as a second means of egress. So, but they're going to fix it last. Whatever money they have left over, after putting $50,000 of marble onto the floor, they're going to use $5,000 of it to paint the fire escape, right? So what do you tell them on every building that ever pulls a permit now? Do you have 2 means of egress? They're going to say what? Yes. Is one of them outside? If they say yes, what in addition to a normal permit process, do they need to bring? They need to bring a certification. So you're not ordering load tests. You're just ordering a copy of their certification. And they're going to look at you and say, what? What's that? And what do you say to them? What you should be doing on all these your building should have had a certification every 5 years, every 10 years, whatever. If they don't have one, what do you do right there and then? Well, you can shut them down because, but here's the other thing that I want to help so you're not shutting down business because you don't want to fight people. Until alternate fire protection is provided of equivalence of level of safety. So, can I put some scaffolding up until such time that I do fix the fire escape? Keep my project going? Yes, you can. Says right. Well, it all depends. Well, we're talking about the satisfy temporary means of egress. So, and this is great that he's saying that, but explain to the rest of the people why the code says you can't use.
Where because if the fire escape is not maintained, one of we're on, the United States, it's not maintained and certified. Okay, thank God. My last building, the fire escape was hitting down.
Exactly.
The building is considered an unsafe structure. And that means cease and desist of apartments.
So you want them to fix immediately, based on the way you interpret the
I would
code?
say first thing.
Oh no, and that's what this class is saying. This is fairly new because we only picked this up last year. That as we were doing research, we found that OSHA also had a comment on that. And this is basically saying, can an electrician walk into a building that doesn't have 2 means of egress? Can a plumber walk in and work in any place that doesn't have 2 means of egress? Can any officials walk into any building that doesn't have 2 means of egress? So this is one of those that we said, this is a great checklist item that says, if you make it part of your process, you say, listen, if you have an external, I need that fixed first before, so that it's a safe structure and that everybody can work. So it puts fire escapes now at the beginning of every project, whether they're a 1-story or a 10-story, you say, hey, get your fire escape going right away. The comment now is, until alternate protection is furnished that provides an equivalent level of safety. Who decides whether it's an equivalent level of safety? But also the fire department and the building department. If you're happy with what they put up as far as the second means of egress while they're working on the fire escape, the call is yours. I don't make that call. I don't make the interpretation. I'm just saying it's right here. Got it? So this is what occurred, and I don't know if, does anybody know what the control is of the lights? If we can kill this light, but otherwise, can you guys see it all right, everybody? Yeah. All right.
The smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces, all in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him.
Oh, I was scared to death.
But the fire escape that broke underneath him.
Where the railing just came away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes. Rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes.
So then over here?
For months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results.
Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes, and apartment buildings.
Rust is actually eating away the metal of the fire escape.
Correct.
And the bottom line?
It'll get weak and then eventually it'll fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal.
Would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one a broken tread.
So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in a cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical. The state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply being ignored. Here's proof. We chose fire escapes at random in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Worcester, and here in Quincy. We checked building department files.
But there's no fire escape certification.
Not in this file.
To see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports.
There's no certification in this one either.
Right.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the director of inspectional services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules.
And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe or not?
Well,
I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No.
4 more fire escapes,
Did it fall through the cracks? Yeah.
not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track.
How can they get away with that?
I guess that the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made.
Would you talk to us on camera about this? No?
But when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out to discuss it. In Boston, where there are more than 8,000 fire escapes, again, according to inspectional services, not one we checked was certified. Officials know they are required to enforce the building code, but they admit they don't always know if owners are breaking the law.
The building code is being ignored.
Right, but it's difficult to write a violation when you don't have knowledge of something like that.
But state officials say for a critical issue like this, communities should know. And they warn the Massachusetts building code is not optional.
Does it worry you that these fire escapes are not being certified?
This is an important issue and should not be ignored.
That's because after the smoke and flames begin, it'll be too late to learn you've got no way out.
I can't stress it enough, Hank, that these things have to be maintained and someone's got to be watching.
As a result of our investigation, state officials will now issue an alert to local inspectors. Meanwhile, if there's a fire escape on your home or office, you can contact your local building department to make sure it's properly certified. In the newsroom, I'm Hank Philippi Ryan.
So guys, you know what they did right after this? Because the building department got caught flat-footed, they basically made it so that you can't close a permit. So they didn't know about the OSHA issue, but you can't close a permit on any building that has an external fire escape. So they made it one of the catch-alls at the back. So if you want that as an idea, before you put fire escapes at the front of the building permit process, put it at the end. So what kind of other ideas can you have, which we'll share today, that are check items, check box items? So you put it so that at the end of any permit, you need to have a fire escape certification to close the permit. It doesn't mean you don't close the permit. It means it's not fully closed because it's missing the certification. You will then move it to the front when you deem it ready for you to be part of your initial documentation. Work with your fire department. The fire department, basically, before they sign off on the smokes, what do they ask for? As a checklist item. So they're not stopping the process, but they're going to add it as a checklist item. They do a smoke for occupancy, and then what do they ask? Because when the smoke detector goes off, where do you go? To the fire escape. So what do they ask? Are they ordering an inspection, or are they asking for a copy?
Probably asking for a copy.
Just a copy. So and if there's no copy, does it stop the process? No, they sign off that the smoke is good. It just starts a process. Somebody's got to write the violation. They write a violation, or you write a violation. Whether or not they allow the occupancy to occur, that's not what I'm here about. I'm just saying that's another checklist item. Health department kicks people out before they let people in. What do they check? Sanitary conditions, and what else?
Safety.
Safety, which means what must they have? Two means of egress. For Section 8 and housing, in order to get into a Section 8 housing, what do you need to have? Two means of egress. So right now in Boston, every Section 8 housing, if it doesn't have a fire escape certificate attached to it, guess what they don't get? That person who's putting their home up for rent. So that's the health department. We've got to get them into this. It's a checklist item. Nobody's ordering anything. No ordering of any fire escape inspection. They don't even know what the condition is. They just want a copy. Yes, please.
Now, how about, I'm just supposing, I don't have any picture in my head, but say you got an old home built 100 and some years ago, has a fire escape, it's a single residence. Does this apply to there? Or just
all
commercial?
Exterior steel or wooden stairs. Have I mentioned fire escapes yet?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I haven't mentioned it because when you read the code, it's all exterior steel wooden stairs, bridges, balconies, and fire escapes. So we're actually at the tip of this iceberg doing what, guys? Talking about fire escapes, which is what we see above water, but what's the code really say? all exterior steel or wooden stairs. Does that cover all those rotten porches on the back of a house?
Yeah.
All those decks, all those waiting balconies, all those Romeo and Juliet balconies? Is that what we're going to talk about today, or you want to stay on top of the iceberg? The iceberg today is only fire escapes, right? And they're wood or steel. But guess what? You've got a bigger issue, because all exterior steel or wooden stairs must be examined by law. Otherwise, if they don't want it examined, what could they do to those all those exterior steel wooden stairs? Cover them. As soon as you cover them, they become what? Interior. And I don't have to deal with them anymore. But if you're going to keep it exterior, you're going to steal, you're going to get away with murder. Because why do people have these things on the outside? So they can save all the valuable real estate inside to do what with it? Rent it. But then these people who rent it can't do what? Survive to pay the bill because they died on the fire escape. There's a law that we want to help, and we want to push it nationwide. We want to make it so that all rent from now on can only be collected by the landlord, the owner of the property, through the fire escape on the exterior of all windows. So now everybody who pays their rent can just tape their envelope to the outside of their window, outside of their fire escape, and no agent can go get it. It has to be the landlord climbing up every one of these fire escapes to collect their rent. Okay? That would be a great law, wouldn't it?
Yeah. He'll send somebody.
I'm not going. You can't. The law says you can't.
He'll send his children up.
So, guys, this is what happened on our end. And that class that Channel 7 news piece happened in 2003. It's 2014 already. She did that because of the Station 9 fire. So it's always some calamity that happens out there that why things happen. So this is what happened in 73, and then it went to sleep. So do you understand that certain things, basically, if you don't have a checklist item, so understand that if you're doing permits in a building, and there's a checklist item that says with every permit that gets pulled, electrical, plumbing, anything, if there's an exterior stair, what must be attached to either open that permit or close that permit? To satisfy the safety requirement both for the building code and the OSHA code. A certification, that's simple. Who chooses whether you have it at the beginning or at the end? You choose. Can you start at the end and then bring it to the front? You choose. Is it going to happen overnight? No. 3 to 5 years? Yeah. So sadly she died, the niece survived.
Witnesses say it sounded like an incredible explosion when the fire escape of a Philadelphia apartment building suddenly collapsed and injured 3 people.
NBC 10 cameras were there as a friend holds on to one of the victim's hands, who is apparently conscious as the victim is placed into an ambulance by medics.
KYW-TV reports a man who was critically injured and 2 women were rushed to local hospitals.
Police believe the bolts of the fire escape appear to have been rusted and dislodged from the brick wall of the apartment building.
The victims fell more than 30 feet to the ground, and now the incident is under investigation. Worth noting, the complex is more than 100 years old and even on Philadelphia's historic registry. Local reporters are all pointing out the city's licenses and inspections department hasn't filed any violations in the past when it comes to the old building, so Sunday's collapse came without warning. Neighbors say the 3 victims, reportedly all in their 20s, may have been partying on the fire escape landing before the incident. For Newsy, I'm...
You guys hear that? You know what caused that? Those damn kids partying on the fire escape. Is that a true statement? Lack of maintenance. Okay, so if anybody ever tells you, those, keep those damn kids off, and that's not the cure. You know what I'm saying? That's not how you set off a hand grenade, by saying, oh, don't play with hand grenades. You're right. No, the cure is don't have any hand grenades that the pins are already pulled out, and somebody can just trip over them, and that's what happened here. I happen to be in the area doing inspections, and I actually went by.
Fire escape engineers inspect the summary video. We're here in Philadelphia. All right. Some of the preliminary information that I'm getting out of this is that this piece here, which this is the back, used to be up against the building. These 2 brackets here used to be going to that 4th, 5th floor up there, where you now see the 2 blowouts. The blowout on the left and the blowout on the right. And it used to be attached there. And then this staircase, which is here, it went to that platform up there. And that platform up there also had a bracket which is now laying inside the floor below. So they either were going up to that upper floor or they were on this fire escape and as soon as it let go on this side or up above, which looks like it's all blown out. As soon as it let go there, it basically tore away and fell down, or the bracket that holds one of the legs, one of these legs is sitting on a bracket like this, and it's up there. You can see it on the floor below there. See, there's a bracket right there. There's the other piece that's stuck in the wall. There's the hole in the wall used to be. That bracket was there to that corner, and it used to support the staircase that used to go to that other top corner there. So that's how this piece got its way down here, and it kind of did this. But the key is, this is what it looked like, that bracket that used to hold one of the corners, and then it would go from here up to a window that's not here, but it's way up there. But so basically when this released or that other piece released, it pulled away and brought this with it, or if this failed first, and then it released the remaining piece, but I believe everybody was either up above on this piece. But see how it ties into the back? Single bolt with an angle on the back. So this down here represents that there's an angle along the back, an angle along the wall, okay? And this platform is pretty shoddy, but basically creating a corner supported only by this brace. This brace goes into the building, and so should that corner fail, which it did, basically this brace is no longer holding the staircase that came from the upper platform way up above and fed that upper window. So if they were on the platform itself, 2 or 3 people, but look at that whole piece there. That looks like that's not fresh. That looks like it's old. Looks like it's been through rust jacking, ice jacking, and just maybe the cement was getting porous, and it basically pulled away from there. Now, when you come down here and look at this, this is evidence that something was happening between the iron, because this is all eaten. This is where the through bolt used to be into the building. I still want to find out how this was tied into the building, whether it was through bolted into the building or not, because those pieces go in there.
That's the bottom.
Right there, okay? And that's the above. So whether or not there was through bolting or was properly attached, but there's evidence here that through ice jacking, rust jacking, this was all getting pushed away. This piece may still be up there and it's all rotted away. And there's the other hole for a through bolt or for an epoxy bolt. Usually it's a through bolt. And if it's all eaten away because water got behind here and ate everything, and it looks like it did get behind here. Okay, aside from this, we've got original hardware, we got rust and all the connections, and we've got welded treads and rust and all these treads, rust and all these treads. Okay, but you got rust in the connections. So this seems to be through rust jacking and ice jacking that it ate whatever was connecting it. See, this is all rust inside here.
So I won't. Basically, what happened there, as you can see, is multiple failures. So the platform itself, usually you lose one side. If you lose one side, what does the other side do? Holds it there while you jump the hell off of it. If all of a sudden both sides wanted to give way and it was attached to another piece, what would happen? The other piece would hold it there while you run away because it's going to scare the hell out of you. So how many failures did we have here? We had the platform failed in two areas. So not one area rotted out, 2 areas rotted out, and then where it was tied into another support holding it that could hold it up there for a little while you jumped away. What did it do? It ripped out of the wall and fell down. So we had 3 failures. Now they were going to get some information on this because they asked an engineering firm to come in. I believe you're from Philly. Did they come back with any findings that you could share with the class?
They did. I don't have all the part of this stuff, but they did.
Okay, so they had an investigation immediately. Now the rest of the fire escape system, just as I'm using the rest of the fire escape systems as an example, they look good, or they all look full of rust. Okay? And here's the last question. Was the building immediately evacuated or still occupied to this day? Okay, so let's see what else we have here. this is an example of, and you can turn on the lights now, Bruce, thank you. This is another example of what happens behind the scenes that you may not know. If you want to know why fire escapes rot out, why there's ice jacking, why there's rust jacking, it's because of this. A lot of people don't realize that this veneer is not structural. That's your siding, that's your vinyl, that's your aluminum, that's whatever you want to put on the outside of your wall. What's structural is inside here. And a lot of times these masonry block walls are 2 or 3 layers of dirty brick or masonry wall. That's it. So that's what you have to go in with this piece of steel, only 8 to 12 inches deep. So all fire escapes do not go all the way in 6 feet or something like that, tying into the back of the building somewhere. Nope. They go into only 8 to 12 inches deep. So a lot of times when there's something going on, and a lot of times, see right here? In the parapet wall, guess what starts leaking? Guess where it comes down? It comes down between the veneer and your wall, and it feeds water and eats all the steel, see? But you can't see it outside, but you get some glimmers, what we call dragon's teeth or rusty fangs. See these, all this rust? That's an indication that something's happening inside and it's peeing outside. And it's giving you all the things you need to see. This is a 22-story building in Chicago, and this is one of the only ways that you can identify whether or not there was something going on in the back. Now, to do this on a building, could be anywhere from $250 to $500 per connection. Now, you have an old building, 50, 7,500 years old. You got some evidence of this going on. You want to load test it? A 100-year-old building? Yeah. So you like, what we do is we let sleeping dogs lie. We know that we've got every indication that something is not good here, but what we do is we duplicate the connection. We leave that connection alone, and we put another 3/4 inch rod with a plate on the inside or an epoxy bolt, and we basically, it's better to duplicate a connection than it is to play with this. For $75, I can put in a through bolt. For $500, I can open up every wall and then try to put it back together, because every now and then when you take this out, what's happening inside here? Some other problems that we didn't want, some other can of worms. All I need to do is just verify that my connection is good. So if my connection's already suspect, I just give it a new connection. All right? So we're not here to fix walls and x-ray walls. So we duplicate. By the time I can put a hole anywhere near the connection 5 to 6 inches away, it's only a 3/4 hole, goes all the way inside with a plate, or if the wall can take it, epoxy bolts. Okay? Questions so far? Because, you know, I have to do rapid fire because you guys only got 2 hours. You know, this is a 4 to 6 hour class. I'm going to leave a lot of stuff behind, but you understand the issues here? You want to take the light on this one?
In downtown Colorado Springs Wednesday.
Colorado Springs.
A startling scene in downtown Colorado Springs Wednesday after a man falls to his death.
I was just walking up the street to get to the bus stop, and the cops were right there, told me I couldn't come this way.
Police say the victim and several others were working on the roof of this privately owned building when the man fell.
He may have fallen a distance of anywhere from 15 to 20 feet is what's being investigated right now.
Tragically, the man died on scene. It's believed he fell from the fire escape and not the roof or a window, although how it happened is still unknown.
That's what's being investigated right now to determine the actual cause of the accident itself.
Right now, police say the death is not criminal and is being called an industrial accident.
There were several witnesses, individuals who were working with the deceased party, and so we've interviewed them as witnesses in this investigation.
It's really sad. I feel bad for his family. I mean, I don't know him, but prayers and best wishes to his family for sure.
Others in the area expressing similar concerns and well wishes, visibly distraught by the day's events.
I mean, I can't even imagine it, just coming out to do your job one day and just fall off a building. Like, it's really sad.
Now, what they didn't want to tell you is that he died you know, at Chicago, they fell 40 feet. Nobody died until one of them died later, but the other 2 girls survived, critically injured. And the lawyers were very quick. They were 2 to 3 weeks later, they already had, the lawsuits were already filed on that particular one. This one, like I said, the cable snapped on the end. It was a weight on the nose of the cantilever and the cable, because he was way out there trying to make it go down. It wouldn't go down, so he brought some more of his helpers to come up, put enough nose weight on the nose, but it snapped. So he didn't, you know, he may have fallen only 15 feet, but the decapitation, partial or full, was really why but they didn't mention that here. And they, you see the big tarp over the scene. So here's some other situations where people had done what's called a dead load test. So this woman, this is in Boston, this is a 5-story building, this is a 5-story building on a hill. That means this 5-story building, your 4-story building sees the other guy's roof, which has a brand new deck that they built, and your fire escape conveniently goes out to it. So what do you do at night when you and your girlfriend are hanging out? Coming back from the clubs? It's a nice summer night. You go there, you hang out, you have a few drinks. All of a sudden, what occurred is the phone rang, and who wants to answer the phone? He does, or his girlfriend wants to answer the phone? So his girlfriend wants to go answer the phone, the rails are missing, and she goes, 5 stories, dead. Here's another one. I went to investigate this one. This guy turned this complex into 5 condos. He and his son basically needed to put in a roof. So his son, they all lifted the fire escape, put in a new roof because they were selling it for condos, and then when they put it back on, they tightened everything back down. There was some extra bolts left. What do you do with those? Throw them in your bolt box because you collect bolts for life. And all of a sudden, one day they had somebody trying to buy a condo. They were up here trying to buy a condo. There's 3 fire escapes. The one I'm on, this one, and that one, and all 3 were in the same condition. So I was scared where I was taking the shot. But basically, while they were here, the fire escape with 5 people on it, the real estate buyer and seller. So there's 2 real estates, a buyer and a seller, and one of the trustees. They were up there and they fell 12 feet only. So when this thing slid and everybody was under this jumbled mess, they all survived, nobody died. Grabbed their phones, did what? Call their lawyer to do what? To call 911. See, that's what you gotta do. You gotta call the right people in sequential order. Photograph whatever you can with your smartphone, call your lawyer, have your lawyer call 911, and just keep videotaping as much as you can because you're gonna need a lot of that to, you scream a lot because that helps in that whole pain part of the trial. This is another one. I was in Iowa. I was an expert witness on a case. 3 kids watching fireworks on 4th of July. Up here went collapse, boom, boom. That's the blood on the ground. That's the piece that was up there. We did an investigation. Here's the smoking gun. Why? Because this is through bolted into the building. It used to be through bolted on that side, but the guy's repair team took it off, fixed the window, fixed the siding, put it back in without the through bolt. They used a 1/2-inch hole that used to be the through bolt. They put in a 1/2-inch lag bolt in a 1/2-inch hole. And then when the kids were up there, oh, fireworks. It just ripped. But what didn't fall, guys?
The other side that was still intact.
The other side that was correctly installed. So, here's the best part. This is fire escape CSI. What do you do with something that somebody just got critically injured on?
This looks like a leg from the staircase.
Secure, right? Where do you secure it? Secure location or an empty lot, grass lot 8 blocks down the street?
Hold on a second.
When I walk around this lot, the guys cleaned up it all over there. What do we find? The lawyers, owners, and everybody's walking around. And what do we pull out? There's a piece that fell on the ground with the kids, 3 kids. And none of them died. They got killed.
Looks like this is foam cold.
Natural paint. The primer,
smoking gun.
This might be.
So that's what happens whenever you look at this. You can always find out why a fire escape fell. Lack of maintenance, improperly installed. Otherwise, if they've been properly maintained and they're properly installed, they never fall. So they put it back, and when they put it back, they through bolted it. They're so unsure of themselves that they then threw a leg on it onto the asphalt shingle on the roof. Did they put it on a pressure treated sleeper? No. See these 2 legs over here that were never there before? Because this used to be free floating all by itself out of that corner. Did they put that on pressure treated sleeper? No. And then at that corner, there was a hole there for them to lag that corner back into place. Did they put the lag screw back in there? No. So I was able to go there and videotape, picking up that bottom piece, walk it over 1.5, 2 feet, and then walk it back and put it back down. So, hit the lights again.
Right now, firefighters are taking down the ladders and rolling up the hoses But earlier in the night when they pulled up, there were flames coming out of the side of the building. Firefighters say it was one of the scarier moments because when you pull up to a building and you see children and mothers hanging off the side of the fire escape, smoke swirling around them, they said that's scary, scary stuff. They got up there, they got the ladders up, and they said nobody got hurt.
The fire escape, there was 3 or 4 people hanging off the fire escape. They couldn't get off. They were just on the fire escapes. I had people hanging in the fire escapes at the rear of the building, and on this side of the building, we had a bunch of people on that fire escape.
About 50 people were displaced inside this building. However, firefighters say there's good news tonight. It looks like everybody will be allowed to go back in except the one unit where the fire was in. They said that's good luck to them tonight. I'm Bob Wilson on the scene of Bridgeport, News 8.
Okay. Now the question is, were they allowed to go back into this building? Even though the guy said everybody was stuck on the fire escapes because they didn't do what? They didn't work. But how many people? 50 people. I examined this fire escape 6 months later, not this one. I think it was 10 systems. Everyone failed, everyone had emergencies. 6 months after the fact. We reported it to the authorities, and what did they do about it? So, you have to be concerned that sometimes people just don't know what to do with fire escapes because they've never really touched it before. You know, a lot of it is like, oh my God, I'll write a violation, but I don't even know how to cure it. Okay? So that's the biggest issue. So, let's take a look at some other live load testing. Do you have parades in your city? When you have a parade, what's everybody do?
Eat leak.
Right? When you have, remember in the days before AC, what did everybody do? That's a vendor fixing a fire escape. Our Chicago vendor, his dad, who's only 57 years old, died. He fell 7 stories doing exactly that. That's not him, but that's 7. So you know who fire escapes catch? Everybody. They save lives or take them. Got it? That's the only 2 jobs it has. Because it's false. You know, when it's unsafe and it's suspect, it'll take your life. And you guys know this. Some of the firemen will repeat this. In case of fire, what's the fireman tell the younger guys? In case of fire, don't use the. Right? That's the word. That's the unspoken word on every fireman training. Like, hey, this, that, the other thing. By the way, you get to a building, there's a fire escape. Don't ever use it. Now, when that fireman showed up there, was he fighting a fire or was it a rescue? It was a rescue. So those 3, 5, 7, 10 minutes he used to get all those people off the front fire escape, the side fire escapes, the back fire escape, he used all this men to do what? That's first, right? You get there and people are trapped. And by the way, you see the little girl, the 8-year-old little girl, what was her situation? She was on this ladder that was supposed to do what? That's balanced and weighted. What's it supposed to do? It's supposed to go all the way down so she can do what at 8 years old? Get off. And where is she? She's 10, 12 feet in the air, and the thing is locked. And so the firemen, when they got there, it was a rescue mission. It wasn't. They weren't fighting. And those 3, 5, 10 minutes at the initial onset of a fire, do what to the occupants? The smoke. What's it do to them? Kills them. Most people are dead in the first 3, 5, 10 minutes due to not the fire. The fire just cooks the evidence after the fact. The smoke, that's what kills you first. So when you get to a fire, fire escapes are made to be self-evacuation. You're supposed to get the hell out so that 1 minute, 10 minutes, 1 hour later when the fire department shows up, who do they find? Nobody. They then fight the fire. They can use a fire escape or not, or they can use a fire escape in case all hell breaks loose. And so EMTs use fire escapes. Firemen, when all hell breaks out, they use it. You know, a lot of kids today during parades, but let me show you some other reasons why kids use fire escapes. So, I mean, non-smoking buildings. So where's everybody going to go smoke? Okay? You got people, you know, you got complexes where all of a sudden there is internal stairs, but what people used to go visit Jerry upstairs. People are taking pictures on fire escapes. Some of these halls that you have, what do they have in the back? Fire escape. What's the photographer say? Hey, you know, it's going to be a great experience. All right, who inspects fire escapes? Okay? The law is very clear. That's true. The law is very clear.
Guy.
Design professionals or others acceptable to the building official. Okay, that's what it says. Design professional and others acceptable to the building official. So that could be an architect if you allow. That could be an engineer if you allow. It could be a structural engineer if you allow. It could also be a fire protection guy if you allow. It could be anybody. You want to know how many licenses there is in the United States specific only to fire escapes? There's one out of Boston, because I use it, I've been inspecting all of Harvard University's fire escapes for over 20 years, right? And that's issued by the building department. I got one out of LA, which is a Reg 4, which is issued by the fire department. Okay? And I'm a fire escape assembly tester. Got it? You know how many other licenses there are? None. So right now you're relying on design professionals or others acceptable to the building official. You know what nobody had until we designed one and put it out there? A confidence test, a checkbox test that says, is this, is that, is the tread? So we created one and they're all over. So now LA has one, Oregon has one, Seattle has one, Jersey has one, everybody has them because it's an industry standard documentation which you can use for what? To say to somebody this is what the state said, or you can just say there's industry standard questionnaires out there that you can do what? Because if somebody starts really cracking your cannolis and say, hey, that's not a state document, whatever, you say, well, that's an industry standard document. And since you are so proud of the name of your engineering firm, because you've been at it for 45 years, can you answer these questions on your letterhead then? So that you won't fill out this industry standard documentation. Because what does he want to sign for you? To the best of my information, knowledge, and belief. And do you accept those anymore? Sure you do, because what do you pull out of your pocket every time somebody brings you to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, because 4 code says you could. So keep accepting opinion letters, because what do you pull out of your pocket? When they drop that card, what do you drop right on top of it? Load test, got it? So keep accepting these letters, because anybody walking in with an opinion letter, have they met your other satisfactory evidence of strength? Does an opinion letter satisfy you? A die-ball opinion, does it satisfy you with other evidence of strength? So since it doesn't, you want to go there and verify and add more work to your day? So somebody brings you an opinion letter, what do you pull out of your pocket that I just gave you today out of 4 codes? Load test today, that's a great letter.
I require an engineer evaluation with recommendations for repair or replacement. Signed and sealed.
Correct, and that's what people have been putting in, and that's they're probably going to find one of those in the Philadelphia case and also on the other one.
It also makes the engineer who's doing it, when you say I want it signed and sealed and I want your recommendations, put him on notice that if something happens to this, you're going to jail.
Right. If you go back and that was tested, I got a million reasons why that doesn't really happen, because we accidentally, not accidentally, we got put through the mill on one of these and that got questioned. The best of your information also. So I got a million reasons to tell you what that statement means, because every letter that you have, if you keep reading down to the bottom, somewhere it's going to say, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, this was not a load test. This is an opinion only. And so they're allowed to issue such. So because that was the case, there was a lot of guys doing what's called drive-by, fly-by. They wouldn't get on them. They wouldn't do anything other than drive by, roll the window, collect that $500, $1,000 check, write a simple thing that says, to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, the construction sound that has been kept painted. We're telling you that as soon as you take one of these opinion letters signed by a very reputable whoever, okay, fire escapes are the bastard child of egress. It's 6 times the work, 1/6 the pay, and guess who you give it to when you get a requirement for an engineering firm to go do the work? They don't give it to the senior guy. You know who gets it? The lowest guy in the poll that you punish, and you know when he gets, he doesn't know what to look for. And then on top of that, you throw that questionnaire on him saying, did you do all these things? So he can still give you an opinion letter, fill out an industry standard confidence test, and as soon as he brings that confidence test to his boss who signs for him and say, hey, I need you to sign this and seal this, his boss is going to say, okay, no, this is our opinion letter, great, we'll collect $1,000 for that. What's this? Well, they also want this attached. All these yes, no's for them. They want you to verify that you've done all these things and verify the connections into the wall. We didn't do any of this shit. $1,000. To do this stuff, we're going to need $4,000, $3,000, $5,000. No, we're not going to sign this. You sign this. Okay. He says, I'm not signing this. And he walks in with his opinion letter. Hey, My boss said, we've been doing this for 15 years here. Here's your letter. I'm like, okay. What do you pull out of your pocket? You haven't satisfied the other evidence of strength. Because you got some great guys out there that do it right. Sadly, a majority, and I mean a majority, have not been doing anything with fire escapes for 50 years. So there's been no rules for 50 years. And some of you have been accepting letters from the vendors who repaired them. You didn't even get a letter from. Just have, if you told the local people in your area, so listen, just have your repair guy tell me that, you know, he fixed it. And you bury that. So if anybody, do you still accept opinion letters? Say yes. Everybody, yes, I still accept opinion letters with what attached? With a load test. If they give you other evidence of strength, right, they fully refurbish the fire escape, will you pull out your card? If they do a partial repair and they leave behind original hardware that's in good condition, what are you going to order? Partial load test. Or a full, but it all depends on you. But unless they do a full refurb satisfies all three codes which says certification or other evidence of strength. Got it? So opinion letters, you're not going to disturb, you're not going to rock the boat. Let come what come. But if they haven't satisfied the other evidence of strength for you, what do you pull out? Without even going to see the job.
So again, you never get on them. And here we are in Atlantic City. This is called inspector training. Okay? Must be structurally sound, must be kept painted, and this ladder's so low. What tends to happen to these low ladders? They get hit by trucks. Okay? So they must be up. So, before you get closer, must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So what's one of the things you're not going to write them up on this one?
Paint.
Right? Because it's got more paint than rust. It can have a little bit of rust.
Got a little rust.
You know what I'm saying? If it's 50-50, they're going to lose. But if it's 75-25, that means they can use a spot paint job. Then you can't write a spot violation, you know, a rust. But now let's look at things. First of all, let's look for stuff, right? One, is this ladder straight or bent?
It's bent this way. Bent.
So look at it. Come this way.
It's bent.
It's bent. So meaning what?
Oh yeah.
Now look straight up. Now use your eagle eyes, guys. Straight up. You see any rotten material, any holes in the steel structure?
Yes, a lot.
Okay, so is this fire escape structurally sound?
No.
Do you know enough, or do you need a third-party examination?
Third party.
Now look in that corner up there. Look at where the thing goes into the building. Is it cemented into the building in all three, or is all three full of holes? No cement. On this bottom platform. Straight ahead.
That's definitely got a hole in the
right,
middle.
but look at this one.
Rotten.
Look at this one.
It's missing.
It's missing the cement. It's missing cement and missing cement. So what's that mean for the first platform that takes everybody, including your firemen?
Right. It's not.
Life safety or dangerous building?
Dangerous building.
Okay. So you guys need to have a dangerous building division. Now let's take a look at the treads. Look straight up at the treads, because now you're looking for any dangling treads. Any rust in any of them? Any dangling treads? Okay. Who's gonna?
You can see rust underneath.
Right. You can see rust in the connections. All right. Now let's look up to the other platform up there. Do you see anything mysterious up there? And it gets hard. It gets hard as it goes up. So will you need?
To get a close look,
but do you need to go all the way to the top floor? You already have a painted structure with a bent ladder and cement missing out of the first platform. What more do you need? You want to get on it? You want to go open the door and let's crawl out the second floor and peekaboo and carry these?
Don't have to.
Right? This is third-party tools.
Right.
You guys will never need to get on the fire escape. And now let's take a look at original hardware or new hardware. So is it square head bolts you see or hex head bolts? Square. So these are 50 to 75-year-old bolts. You're going to take an opinion on them or you want a load test? All right, so if I came in here and I was watching a vendor and he took out all those bolts and removed all the rust on the treads, and then the connection at the very top of the string and at the very bottom of the string you put in all new, do I need to load test this staircase for you? If I put in all brand new fasteners, remove all 100% of the rust, or have I given you other evidence of strength?
I would say yes. Load
okay,
test.
I come in and I see that connections into the wall. I'm gonna cement shut all of those. I'm gonna put a hole next to it, 6 inches away, and I'm gonna put a new epoxy bolt into the building. I don't care about these originals. And I'm gonna bury the new epoxy bolt 8 to 12 inches deep into the wall. And I'm gonna reconnect it back to these fasteners. So you're gonna get brand new master connections. These are gonna be the slaves, right? Do you want me to load test the platforms now?
Yeah.
Well, I just gave you no connections. Why would you? If I change all the fasteners on the platform,
I don't know, but I want a load test.
But if I give you new, see, the question is, depending on the structural condition, a load test may be ordered. So I have an either or with your department. If I refurbish it in its entirety, there is no load test. That's the national norm.
Okay.
So back to the question, I change all the fasteners on this platform, and I drill a new epoxy bolt into every support. I fix the old ones going in to make sure that they're closed so nothing's getting back into those. So now I'm at 200% into the building, 100% new fasteners, no square head bolts left on this structure. Do I need to load test the platform?
No.
Perfect. Now let's talk about this ladder.
I got a quick question for you.
Go ahead.
Now, that new connection there.
Yeah, there's
Did you say that's epoxied in, or you have no way to know that?
Okay, and what's it, Patrick?
Pat.
Hey, Pat. Okay. All right, guys. Fire Escape Academy inspector training. So, gentlemen, we're here in Atlantic City. We're doing some training. This is called. We would normally do this after training class. We go out and look at things. So we're here, and you just learned. All you need is must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So, step one before you even think about getting on it, has it been kept painted?
No.
Okay. The class you taught, or you're going to get taught, says that all connections rush from the inside out. So this fire escape only got to this point because the connections were not taken care of. So do you need to see connection problems in order to write this a violation at this time? So all you need is no paint means it doesn't meet the code. It must be maintained at all times. That's your fire code. So since it's not maintained, you are now asking for a third-party investigation to verify what you think is going to be true and that the connections are just as bad or fatal. The second thing when you're doing this examination, because all you need is 2 to 3 minutes and you're out of here, because you're writing a maintenance violation right now under 1028.6. So you're about to leave, but you need one more thing to check the dangerous building code. And that is, do you have anything dangling, anything bent that would make this a dangerous situation while it's getting repaired for the firefighters or the building tenants? Okay, so any dangling or bent supports, start from the bottom and work your way. Any bent supports anywhere?
Yes.
All right. So does that make this platform safe or not? And is the platform already dipping because of it? So you got a dangling, you got a bent support here. Now you're going to start looking at the connections where the staircase comes down. Is there any connections that are failing holding the staircase in position? Like if you look straight up here.
Yes.
So is that staircase safe for egress?
No.
Okay. Now you're going to look for dangling treads. Do you see any dangling treads or such huge corrosion that a tread is ready to fall anyway and it's just they're dangerous? Do you see any dangling treads?
I do not.
Okay, so looking back up at the rest of the fire escape, do you see evidence of rusty tears indicating that water's getting in and it basically it's pissing out, showing you that there's
a lot of corrosion right
so a lot of times by them putting this vinyl on that you can't verify. So now look at these connections that hold the thing into the building. Any of these suspect?
Sure.
Okay. See all the rust in that corner?
Yep.
So, and that connection is holding up the entire staircase. Okay. So now you've basically got what you need on this fire escape, and that is that the fire escape is has not been painted. So definitely the connections are suspect. That's the word. You're looking for a dangerous building or life safety concerns. You've seen some, and that is that this is bent. So this platform is in a state of collapse. The staircase is not being properly supported, so it could further drop. No dangling treads, but this fire escape is suspect, right? Yeah. Now, wood structures. You're looking at a wood structure, must be kept painted, must be structurally sound. Has this been kept painted?
No.
Well, normally more paint than rust or more rust than paint?
Well, wood doesn't rust.
Right, well, I'm sorry, rot or peeling paint. More paint than...
More paint, yes.
Now, how about a pressure treated?
Right, we'll get into that because right now you're just concerned about, is this a safe structure? It's all exterior steel wooden stairs. So if this is going to be used like a fire escape, this has to be examined and load tested. So now you can come in here a little bit and you never want to get on them and you sort of want to get underneath them. Do you see any cracked wood?
Definitely that one.
Okay, and you see any short wood, meaning trip hazard? Here it's missing some pieces. So you've seen enough to basically say, okay, this needs to be examined. Okay, now whenever you can, you get underneath. And you look underneath here, and you try to see the construction mode, are any of the steel, the galvanized pieces, the wood, the nails, is anything look like it's expanding? Right?
Yeah.
And it's all going to be done by third party guys, not by you. So do you have enough evidence on this one that it needs some repair? And it should be stained and sealed, right? And load tested. A lot of times we never load test wood. The only thing we do with wood is we reinforce it with steel. And a lot of times we give them another 5 years before they can replace it, depending on how old it is. Okay? So with that being the case, just quick look on this one. More paint than rust, or more rust than paint on this one?
It needs to be painted.
It needs to be painted. So do you have enough for the maintenance to write a maintenance violation? That maintenance violation automatically triggers on the 1028.6 a need to have it examined by a third party. Do you see any expansion? Do you see any areas of concern? Do you see any joints that are missing gussets or steel, or that the wood has popped? And this is just from another yard.
Right.
And so the fact that it hasn't been maintained by paint means that certain metal connections are and nails are what?
Rusting.
Are rusting in there. So who's going to tell you that? A third party person, not you. So must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So here you are doing a job here, and you wrote these violations. All of a sudden, you just need this address to send him what? A violation on the 1028.6 to have his structure examined by a third party. And the only thing you got him on was not properly maintaining it.
Right.
Got it? All right, let's walk across the street.
So now it